Shabbat mornings, we've been making like a little circle. So we've been moving the chairs since it's only like 15 people. We make a little circle. It's been kind of nice.
Oh, really? It's a reunion.
All set? Hiya, friends. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbos.
Good to see you. It's good to see you. Good to have everybody connected, our friends online. We wish you Shabbat Shalom. For Crystal, who is still welcoming folks on our YouTube page, we're grateful for you to kind of encourage people to connect. And we'll invite you all to turn again to page 129. Page 129, and your friendly Shabbat announcement is if you have 2 page numbers, you're following the one in blue brackets. Now you know where to go. 129.
Amen.
going to invite you to turn to someone who you may not know and share your name and wish a Shabbat Shalom. You can introduce yourselves. You can say hello. Hey. Kiddush? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. So let's turn back again to page 120. We're going to bring some Shabbat light, God's light, into our sanctuary, into this tent, our permanent tent. And if Sharon and JC, if you folks will come forward, and you can light our candles. Thanks, friends.
Must be more secure. Okay. You think I'd know? Oh, good. There's a little breeze. There is a little breeze.
Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thanks, friends. Shabbat Shalom. We invite you to turn to page 123. Let's rise. If we are able, we'll make our Kiddush together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'mahaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat l'chaim.
Amen. Let's return to our seats. Page 138 and 139. The prayer from our mystics of Tzfat will continue with the first 5 stanzas. After the 5th one, we jump to the very last one, and then we rise for a moment, and we welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst.
Adonai kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litila, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Mikrat Shabbat, lechu v'necha, Yihi mekor habracha, Berosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila, Lecha dodi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Lecha dodi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Mikdash melech ir melucha, Kumitzai mitoch ha'afecha, Kavlach shevet emek ha'bacha, Vehu yachamol alaychem lav, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Itnari me'afar kumi, Nifshi b'gdei tifatechami, Al yad ben Yishai etalachmi, Kor ba'el nafshi ge'ala, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Yitoreri, Yitoreri, Va'oreh, Umiori, Uri, Uri, Shir daveri, Kevod Adonai elayich nigla, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat, kabela, Echad odi, Mikrat kala, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, וחדלתי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. וחדלתי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. שלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מלאכי השלום. שלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מלאכי השלום. וחדלתי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה. וחדלתי לקראת כלה, פני שבת מקבלה.
Let's remain standing. 146. Let's open the handouts that we picked up on the way in. All the way to the right side, you'll see Roll Into Dark, another version of our Ma'ariv Aravim.
Roll into dark, roll
בחושך מפני אור. Go into dark, go into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Go into dark, go into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
We stay in our handouts.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Va'ed. You shall love God with all of your heart, your soul, and with all of your might. You shall teach your children to grow, to love and to know what is right.
May be seated 158.
4. No, you're right. You're right.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai?
let's turn the page. 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, Ufros aleinu sukat shomecha, v'tachneinu b'etzat tova milvanecha, v'hoshienu le'ma shemecha. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, Ufros aleinu sukat shomecha, v'tachneinu b'etzat tova milvanecha, v'hoshienu le'ma shemecha.
We again invite you to rise if you are able. 164. Let's move into the tefillah together.
La la la, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor veHanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei HaKol Vezocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot Umevii geula livnei v'neihem Leman shemo be'ahava Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham bezrat Sarah Atah gibor leolam Adonai Mechaye hakol atarav lehoshia Morid hatal Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim Somech noflim verofei cholim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato lishenei afar Mi chamocha bal gevurot umido melech Melech meimit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hakol Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh U'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha salah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Let's be seated. On 173, let's all read together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam
Take some time for our own private prayer, our own reflections. If you'd like to follow along in the Siddur, you can look on 179 through 181. Choose any reading to reflect upon, or just take some quiet for yourselves. We'll come together in a little bit again at the bottom of 180. It's always after that prayer for peace, we turn to our prayer for healing and wholeness. If you were to look into that handout again, in the middle of the page, you'll see lots of names that have been shared with us in recent days and weeks and months. And we come together and we send them some strength and some hope and a prayer for a speedy recovery. If you'd like to share the name out loud of someone, we invite you to do so. Even if they're all at the same time, let's just lift up those different names. And our prayer for healing is in the handout. It starts on that right side, if you find it at the bottom.
Dear God of our ancestors, help us renew our faith. Grant us a perfect healing. Bring peace to all our days. El Restore our strength of body. Help clarify our minds. Refresh our tired spirits. Rejuvenate our lives. Thank you for all these blessings throughout our days and nights. We celebrate the journey, this precious gift of life.
Within the congregation, we've been talking a lot about prophets and prophecy recently. And a big part of this idea of talking about prophets in the 21st century, something that seems like such an archaic idea, I'm going to give you the punchline. Ready? I think we have a prophetic voice. I don't think we have to wait for a prophet to show up. In fact, if one did, I'm not so sure if I'm going to buy it. But this idea of everybody following in their footsteps and lifting up their own prophetic voices, that is something that is just so extraordinary. But I think we're inhibited about doing it. A prophetic voice is not an opinion, by the way. I just want to make that a little bit clear. I'm not talking about sharing your opinions. You folks can do that just fine. I'm talking about how do we find a prophetic voice? And this week's Torah portion, we go chronologically, one section after the next, reading from the Torah scroll. But for the Haftarah reading, we jump around all over the place, and there's a connection to the theme of what's in the Torah. For this week's Haftarah reading, we're going to be focusing on the book of Jeremiah. Now, Jeremiah was an interesting prophet. He was somebody who lived in the 580s before the Common Era. He was a witness to the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem. And he was also part of the exile that after 586, before the Common Era, Jeremiah went along and was exiled from the land of Israel, along with other leaders of the ancient Israelite and Judean communities, and ends up in Babylonia. But Jeremiah is an interesting fellow. So before the destruction of the temple, he is sharing that there is an enemy coming, and he is warning, because that's what prophets do, sharing a truth, even when people don't really want to hear it. He shares the truth that if we don't change our ways, there's going to be this enemy that's going to beat us up and take over our land. We will lose it. And that is what happens. Now, my theology doesn't let me say that God is responsible for this. God chooses for them to be exiled, but our ancestors absolutely did. So if Jeremiah is saying there's a war coming and people are going to hurt us and we have to change our ways, it was so threatening to the people in power that they put Jeremiah in jail. We kind of still see some of this around today. But here's the interesting thing. Jeremiah has a cousin. Just a cousin. We don't know much about him. His name is Hanamel. And he has some property in a place called Anatot, which is in the northern tribe of Benjamin. So he has this property, but he can't keep it. In the Torah reading, we see that if you can't hold on to your property because there's a drought or maybe too much rain, or in my house situation, there's too much hail, and I heard that. So whatever the reason, Jeremiah's cousin couldn't keep this property. And he goes to Jeremiah and says, you're the first in line in our family to buy my property, with the idea that it stays in the family and be able to get it back. My family did this all the time, not with property. It was mostly like with jewelry, right? A grandmother's ring, don't hawk it. Let's sell it to me. Whether you got it back or not, it was a different story. But in Jeremiah's time, if there was a problem in keeping your land, you sold it to a relative. So Jeremiah's cousin says, Jeremiah, you have to buy my land. But Jeremiah just made this prophecy that Nebuchadnezzar, this emperor of the Babylonian kingdom, is an empire really, is going to squash Judea and Israel. And that is what happens. But the funny thing about Jeremiah, because most of us would say, no, it's too risky, I don't do business with family. Or maybe you're going to say, this isn't such a great idea because we just heard a prophecy that there's going to be an enemy coming, so I'm going to buy this land, but then I won't really own it in a few months. So, this doesn't sound like a really good investment. But Jeremiah does something really powerful. And usually we just read over it. He buys the land. Now, some of us might think that Jeremiah doesn't know how to manage his money, but that's not the story. Jeremiah, I think, does more than follow the rules of the Torah. He is doing two things that I think are really extraordinary. He recognizes who the important people in his life are, and he shows up in the way that they need him, not the way that he wants to provide the help. Should I say that again? Jeremiah is showing up the way that the cousin actually needs him, not in the way that Jeremiah thinks a solution is going to be the best solution. So Jeremiah buys the land because this cousin is his kin. And he recognizes that that's powerful. What do we do with our kin? How do we show up maybe the way we're supposed to? Now, when I say kin, in our day and age, I'm going to expand it. I'm not using the word family. That's way more complicated. But who are our people? And how do we show up? And will we show up if somebody really needs us? Even if I know that there's going to be a problem coming along. Jeremiah shared that there was an enemy coming, but he buys it anyway. So that was one thing, how he shows up, and I found that to be really remarkable. But there's another reason why I think Jeremiah is such a special prophet. He is convinced we can't give in to despair. Even when he knows that there's a threat coming and that maybe we lose everything, he's going to buy the land anyway. He's going not just to show up for the cousin, he's going to show up for his people. He is going to say, I have hope that there is going to be a day of return, of redemption, of a better tomorrow. He is modeling behaviors, not just ideas, and he's not saying any prayers. He's actually acting out his convictions. What a novel idea. To actually behave in the same way that we speak. And I love that about him. So is there risk? Yeah, there's risk. But he buys the field, his personal faith, and his people's future, their future restoration, their return, their hope. It's going to be of little consequence if he didn't really believe that it was possible. And he didn't buy the land because it wouldn't be good for him. One of the things the last few years, especially after COVID, before I knew it intellectually, but it appears to me pretty much every day since COVID began is how we see so many people that are concerned about their own individual perspectives or rights, when, at least from a Jewish worldview, I think it's not as much about our rights as much as it is about our responsibilities. And responsibilities is a hard word in the 21st century. We only like being responsible really for ourselves. But these Jewish values says it can't really only be about yourselves. It is. It's there too. We're entitled to some happiness, right? The tailor's, he's able to be happy, right? Fiddler? It's the tailor who's allowed to be happy too. He's entitled for some happiness, but we have a responsibility for others. And that's what I see from Jeremiah. There was a great preacher, Rabbi Sidney Greenberg, and he wrote all of these different books. He was a very prominent rabbi in America in kind of the middle part of the 20th century. He says, our convictions become concrete when they are converted into conduct. And I just love that line. I'll do it again. Our convictions become concrete when they are converted into conduct. Our declarations become vital when they shape our actions. So many of our beliefs lie quietly inside of us, he says. They never awake in action. So for religion to be alive, according to Rabbi Greenberg, it has to be acted out. Its concern is not only to keep Shabbat or to have another Jew in the pew, but to keep the work days honest and the people in the pew ethical. So I think part of the prophetic voice that I'm yearning for in me and in you is, how do we take these tools and live out the standards that we value? How do we a walk in some degree, maybe to put it into spiritual terms, to walk in God's ways, to be able to think about how we are going to create an encounter with another. I just think we're all so busy. This isn't new Torah for us. We just get distracted a lot. And so our job here is, how do we do the sacred work of remembering what's really important? So here's to prophetic voices. Since we are in this time period of looking at the counting of the Omer, the counting of the Omer is this period in between Passover's beginning and the holy days of Shavuot, which are approaching. Passover is about liberation and freedom from Egypt. Shavuot is about revelation, God revealing God's words, which are in the Torah. And it's a gift. But the idea is we have to kind of prepare ourselves in order to receive it. We're really not so able just to show up at Mount Sinai and say, oh, cool, that's a nice gift, and put it off to the side. We have to kind of unlock different doors, perhaps, that helps us to really receive this gift that is coming, whether we want to accept it from God or our ancestors. You choose. But there's this idea that every day has certain qualities, from 1 to 50. So today's the qualities of the day. It's like Sesame Street. The qualities. This Shabbat service is sponsored by the letter Aleph. I'm getting a little carried away. I'm tired. Sorry. The two qualities, one is Gevurah, which is strength, but in a spiritual context, it's discipline. And the other is Yesod. Yesod is often seen as a foundation, but I'd say we can talk about it as a commitment. How do we have discipline and commitment coming together for this day that begins this evening, this Shabbat? Well, for me, I think we can look at the discipline of setting a strong foundation by thinking about who I want to be when I grow up. Not what, not professions, not success, but the significance. What do I want to bring to the world? How can I actually work at it? How can I cultivate it? That's what we can do on this day of the counting of the Omer. So let's turn to page 570 for Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer.
במצוותיו ציוונו
This is the 37th day of the Omer. Hayom Shiva U'Shloshim Yom Shehem Chamisha Shvuot Shnei Yamim LaOmer. 586. Let's rise as we are able.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כבויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Let's be seated. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If you are observing a yahrzeit is the anniversary of one's death, or if you are in a period of mourning, we invite you, if you choose, to rise for a moment, share the names of the ones whom you are remembering, and we'll take our turns, and then we'll continue with additional names from our community. Dexter. We continue with names from the community. In those first 30 days, we continue to mourn for Bill Barron, the father of Sandra Green, and those yahrzeits for this week that has passed: Jerry Aronson, Sheila Bernauer, Bertel Berliner, Harold Bergen, Harry Cohen, Rochelle Cohen, Pat Davis, Carol Feldman, Harvey Friedman, Janet Gardner, Irma Pearl Gilbert, Daniel Graham, Lester Greenberg, Morris Helfman, Henry Kaiser, Donald Klein, Stephen Kornblatt, Richard Levin, Philip Levin, Rabbi Aaron Penkin, Max Richter, Irving Ritter, Herman Rudolph, Selma Minsky-Rottenberg, Paul Salomon, Manny Simon, Celia Simon, Cynthia Hammond Touchstone, Samuel Weiss, Jack Victor Young, and Berta Zeltzer. Kaddish is on page 598. We invite you to rise as a community. Stand if you are able. While there are different customs around standing or sitting for Kaddish, there's an idea for many of us to stand and say it for those who can't have no one to say Kaddish for them, but also for those that are in the room. We stand shoulder to shoulder. It's never easy when it's our turn to say Kaddish. So we stand with you. 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chay dechol Beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'meru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam omei amaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kurusha barechu le'ela min kol berachata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'meru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'meru amen. V'oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'meru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who hurt, here and everywhere. Let's say amen. We can return to our seats. We're going to invite you to look again in that handout all the way to the right side for our closing prayer. And while our friends come up and they help and lead us again with our closing prayer, just want to remind you that there's other things mentioned here, a food drive, because the summer our food banks are empty. And EFA is seeing a 40% increase. So we talked before about how do we show up in the world. We need each other to show up. Shavuot is coming. We have our community gathering. We have a wonderful celebration to celebrate all of the supporters of our congregation. So the information has gone out in our emails. It's coming up at the end of the month. And let's come and together as one big, lovely, dynamic, and messy community and really kind of celebrate what's happening within our congregation. So last page, open it all the way up.
Yes, we are going to say four prayers. The first is for us. It's actually not in here, but I think you can do it. May I be safe, right? You'll just change it to I. The second is going to be for someone who is, someone we just, in our lives, we want to say something good, we want to say a blessing for. Then someone, we say a blessing for someone who is difficult in our lives. And then we're going to come back and say a prayer for all of us here. So, yeah.
May I be safe. May I be free. May I find space to just be. Can you hear our song? Can you hear our song? May I find my way back home. Can you hear our song? Can you hear our song? May I find my way back home.
We bring into our hearts someone who's been good to us. We offer them up this blessing.
May you be safe.
into our thoughts someone who's been difficult for us. We open up our hearts and we offer them up this blessing. May you be safe. May you be free. May you find space to just be. Hanging in our song, hanging in our song. May you find your way back home. Hanging in our song, hanging in our song. May you find your way back home. We acknowledge the blessing that exists here, all of us here in this space, those of us streaming online, this holy community. Let's open up our hearts and say a blessing for all of us. May we be safe. May we be free. May we find space to just be. Hanging in our song, hanging in our song. May we find our way back home. Hanging in our song, hanging in our song. May we find our way back home. Hanging in our song, hanging in our song. May we find our way back home. Hanging in our song, hanging in our song. May we find our way back home. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Let's
Wish
go
your
do
neighbors a
challah.
Shabbat Shalom. And thanks to our friends for leading our
Yes.
service.
Thank
Let's
you.
make a motzi
Or Zimrah.
and have a nosh.